Whoa, Nelly, let me tell you about aspiration.com. You can go to the head of the line by going to aspiration.com/TYT, and you don't have to wait on the wait list. There's free access to ATMs all across the world. There's no monthly service fee. I know, it just gets better. 10% of their revenue goes to charity. I mean, it doesn't get any more lib than this, and no funding of political campaigns or industry lobbying. So if you were looking for a progressive place to put your money, I think we've got your answer for you, aspiration.com.
House Democrats are planning on censuring. I don't know what this is. They want to pass a resolution condemning Representative Ilhan Omar because she had the audacity to question money in politics and how it influences US foreign policy toward Israel.
And that, perhaps, just hear me out here, we should represent America. Now, look, I know the tropes that they are referring to, so let me explain those. Okay, let me give you the background. Then let me give you the hypocrisy of both Democrats and mainstream media. And then let's talk about how they attack their own rather than Republicans. I thought we were for unity. That's interesting, right? So look, we already went over the first, so-called controversy about Ilhan Omar saying it's all about the Benjamins. Now, but let me make a note on hypocrisy right now on that issue. So progressives like Ilhan Omar call out all the money in politics, no matter where it comes from. Republicans, on the other hand, seem to only call out Jewish donors. Literally, it's always who? Soros, who's Jewish, Tom Steyer, who's Jewish, kind of, his father is Jewish, but that's good enough for them, trust me, okay? Bloomberg, who's Jewish. That's the only guys they ever call out, right? The Koch brothers are mysteriously left out. They're one of the biggest donors in America, but how come we never hear about them? Oh, they give money to Republicans, they're not Jewish, okay? The Mercers own Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and half the Republican Party. They're not Jewish, how come we never hear about them? See, progressives call them out all the time, because why? Because we want to get money out of politics. Okay, why did the Republicans only call out Jewish Americans? Because they don't want to get money out of politics, they're just anti-Semitic. Okay, so now let's turn to this so-called new issue controversy from Ilhan Omar. She talked about how we should be representing America and putting our interests first in that regard over any other foreign country, including Israel. And so the trope being referred to there and why people are upset is in the old days, they would say, oh, the Jews are loyal to other countries, not Germany, okay? The Jews are loyal to other countries, not America. It was mainly out of Germany, obviously, during the 1930s, etc. So I understand why people are upset. But wait a minute. When the Republicans do far worse, and we're gonna give you tweets here in a second from Jim Jordan, Kevin McCarthy, I don't see House resolutions condemning them. So are you worried about the anti-Semitism, or are you worried more about protecting Israel? Because Jim Jordan and those guys, way more anti-Semitic, but they'll vote with Israel. Ilhan Omar, not at all anti-Semitic in her reach out to Jewish allies and her work with progressives, it's all those things, but she's not for the right-wing government of Israel. All of a sudden, we're doing a censure. We're singling her out of all of them and going, how dare she talk about Jewish donors? The Republicans have been talking about Jewish donors nonstop, and you never called out their anti-Semitism. Doesn't mean no one did. And look, the Anti-Defamation League, I don't agree with them on this, but they have been wonderful in their support of all ethnic groups in the Trump era, including Muslim Americans. And whenever there's discrimination against Muslims, the ADL comes out and does a great job of calling it out, okay? So, and I understand why you're concerned. And I'm not saying ADL never called out Jordan and Kevin McCarthy, et cetera. And Nadler has done a good job of calling out Jim Jordan recently. Nadler is a congressman from New York who's a Democrat. But overall, the corporate media, the mainstream media, you'd think that Ilhan Omar is the only person who made any questionable comments here if you think they're questionable. And so now her own party turning on her, and instead of condemning the much more significant anti-Semitism, my God, Donald Trump said there was very fine people on the side of people who chanted, the Jews will not replace us. We're having a conversation about Ilhan Omar and censoring her. Why? Come on, if your priority is not the protection of the right-wing government of Israel, you have a funny way of showing it.
It's a way of censoring speech, and I'm not talking about censoring hate speech, censoring valid criticism of what influences our lawmakers to act the way they act and pass the type of policies they do in response to Israel, right? So it's weird that you can have very similar criticisms toward any other country. For instance, on this show, we very aggressively criticized the Trump administration's relationship with the Saudis, especially after Trump tried to cover for the murder of a US resident and journalist for the Washington Post after the Saudi royal prince ordered for that murder, right? So you can criticize that all you want. You're not gonna worry about someone coming after you and trying to censor you. But for some reason, you're not allowed to, in many circumstances, do very fair criticisms of what Benjamin Netanyahu's doing, what type of actions he's carrying out in Israel in regard to Palestinians living in the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. There's no anti-Semitism there. That is fair criticism, and it's criticism that we would have, that Ilhan Omar would have, that many people would have if a different government was doing the exact same thing. And so look, the actions that I'm seeing right now from these lawmakers, and Nancy Pelosi's staffers are working on this, this resolution. Engel's office is working on this.
These are all Democrats.
These are all Democrats.
They're not Republicans. These are Democrats throwing Ilhan Omar under the bus.
Yes, House Appropriations Committee Chairwoman Nita Lowry, and we're gonna get to one of her tweets in just a minute. She's working on this. So the House will vote on Wednesday on a resolution condemning anti-Semitism in response to Ilhan Omar's latest comments, saying last week that pro-Israel advocates are pushing allegiance to a foreign country.
People should be careful with their language. I just explained to you why they should be careful with their language, and the Jews secretly controlling people with money is the oldest trope in like world history. And so if they said, hey, Representative Omar, I understand your criticism of the Israeli government, and hey, I'm a progressive here. Netanyahu is the Dick Cheney and Donald Trump combined of Israel. I got no interest in him. So let's have an interesting discussion about that. But let's be careful about the language, because you don't want to do what the Republicans do. Well, that would be an interesting and fair comment, and it would be, but no, we're not going to that. We're blasting her all over media and making it seem like she's the only problem, saying, and then like guys like Representative Juan Vargas coming out and saying, you shouldn't even criticize Israel.
Come on. Then we
okay,
don't. If you believe that, we don't believe it. We don't live in a democracy at all. Then our First Amendment is complete and utter trash if you believe that. Okay.
So let me give you Representative Vargas's actual tweet. He said, "It's disturbing that Representative Omar continues to perpetuate hurtful anti-Semitic stereotypes that misrepresent our Jewish community. Additionally, this is a quote: questioning support for the US-Israel relationship is unacceptable."
Wow.
Okay, so I thought we were for freedom of speech, but apparently not. All right, so I want to give you full context. So let's go to the next graphic. Ilhan Omar said, to give you the full quote, "I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it's okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country." Now, if she was hypocritical about where she came from and said, well, hey, look, Somalia is awesome, but I'm just going after Israel, you'd say, hey, well, that seems wrong, right? But she's not. If she protected all Muslim countries and went after Israel, that's the only Jewish country, you say, no, but she goes after Muslim countries even more aggressively. She obliterates Saudi Arabia. She doesn't protect Somalia. She's a refugee from Somalia, right? So do some people in this country who are originally from another place, like for example, Turks, right? I'm a Turkish American. Do they have some allegiance to Turkey? Of course they do. The allegiance to America should be greater, right? But if someone said, hey, a lot of Turkish donors seem to be giving money to influence American politicians in favor of Turkey, I would say, of course they are. I wouldn't say like, that's so anti-Turkish, you never ever say that again. But of course, the congressmen go around calling themselves, like depending on their different lobbying, friend of Turkey, friend of India. Why? They're trying to influence American politics in favor of those countries because they raise money from those different communities.
So I have a question for you, and this is a genuine question. Given the fact that those terrible tropes exist, how do you phrase legitimate criticism in a way that doesn't harken back to those tropes?
Well, I think that, look, I think that it's legitimate, like I said earlier, to ask Congresswoman Omar to phrase it in a different way. But it's not legitimate to censure her above and beyond everyone else. So how do you phrase it a different way to your question?
Yeah.
Plenty of different ways. Look, we do it on the show all the time. I'm aware of those tropes, so I try to avoid them because I don't think it's healthy. So when we call out donors, it's absurd. I had a huge debate, fight with David Idiot Duke on this show. He's like, oh, the bankers are Jewish, and I named 1,000 non-Jewish bankers. Everybody in the media is Jewish. I named 1,000 non-Jewish people in the media, etc. Right? So you could defeat and argue against the stereotypes at the same time saying, yes, but I don't agree with the right-wing government of Israel and I don't agree with the occupation. And so just a little bit of phrasing it wrong allows people to demagogue your policy position. And so that's what they're doing. Nita Lowey, if they were genuine, they would be far more outraged about the Republican things, but they're attacking their own instead. So here, Nita Lowey says, this is Democratic Congresswoman, lawmakers must be able to debate without prejudice or bigotry. I'm saddened that Representative Omar continues to mischaracterize support for Israel. I urge her to retract this statement and engage in further dialogue with the Jewish community on why these comments are so hurtful. I would ask Congresswoman Lowey what Anna's asking. Okay, do you think there's a legitimate criticism of Israel? What are people allowed to say? I mean, I don't know, maybe we should have a meeting with ADL, I'm not kidding. Because I think that folks at Anti-Defamation League are on the whole wonderful people about, okay, what are the contours for how we can criticize the government of Israel? Because every time somebody criticizes it, you censure them. Look at how counterproductive that is. Because then you're accidentally helping the tropes. Because the minute anybody says anything against Israel, they're like, that's it, everybody's united. The Democrats and the Republicans are united in crushing them. And then you know what idiot right-wingers do? They go, see, told you, who controls Congress? Don't help them do that, don't help them do that. This is not helpful, it's counterproductive. I've got to give you the Jim Jordan and Kevin McCarthy quotes. Let me go to graphic 22 first, okay? Kevin McCarthy is the #1 Republican in the House, okay? He says, we cannot allow Soros, Steyer, and Bloomberg to buy this election. Get out and vote Republican November 8th, MAGA, okay? And then has a picture of Soros. They depict Soros as the puppet master, as a matter of course. They do it every election. That is the oldest trope in the book. So where is the censure of Kevin McCarthy, clear anti-Semite? Why is he not written out of town? But he votes with Israel. He votes with Israel, so he's allowed to be anti-Semitic all he likes. Okay, and Jim Jordan, he says, come on, Representative Jerry Nadler, referring to his investigations of Trump, at least pretend to be serious about fact-finding. Nadler, feeling the heat big time, jumps to Tom Steyer's conclusion, impeaching our president before first document request. And he put a $sign instead of the S in Steyer's name. A million times worse than what Ilhan Omar did. There's no cable news discussion of what a horrible anti-Semite Jim Jordan is. Why? He votes with Israel. If you vote with Israel, you could be anti-Semitic all you like. If you don't vote with Israel, we will nitpick every single word of yours. And if it was again, it wouldn't be nitpicking if it was a genuine effort to reach out and have a dialogue rather than, we will censor you, and we'll get your own party to do it. It's not remotely helpful. On the go, don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.